and protests and climate lockdowns. Well, if you live in the United States, that's coming soon to a theater near you, because the United States is facing an energy crisis of its own, ill-timed, just a few days before the election. This comes straight out of the mouth of the White House economic team, and yet the mainstream media is pretty much ignoring the story because they don't want it to hurt the Biden administration and Democrats in the upcoming weeks. So the White House economic advisor, Brian Diaz, says we are facing a diesel shortage. Epic Times did cover this story. Here's the headline. It says, the U.S. only has 25 days of diesel supply. Shortage could cripple economy. Now, recall that there will be less fuel in circulation starting November 1st, because that's what OPEC Plus voted on.
November 1st.
So energy is hard to come by these days. You can't just turn on the tap and it comes. The whole global supply chain.
Actually, you could turn on the tap and it would come if you would allow it to.
Yeah.
You wouldn't shut down a Keystone pipeline and allow drilling to take place and actually not sanction Russia. You could turn. Oh, and also don't blow up the tap, like in the case of Nord Stream.
Yeah, all of those things. Yeah, you're right. You could do that if you were playing sanely with the plumbing, but they're not, right? So here's a shot out of that article. It says the country is down to 25 days of diesel supply, with stockpiles at their lowest level for this time of year in records going back to 1993.
Well, gas was only $1 in 1993.
Fuel for home heating than anywhere else in the country. Also use a lot of fossil fuels for cooking. Inventories are a third of their typical levels going into winter. National Economic Council Director Brian Deese called the levels unacceptably low. By late October, diesel prices had risen for more than 2 weeks to 50% above where they were a year ago.
Oh, those prices are cheap. 50% more for diesel?
Yes.
Holy smokes.
Now, most of your transport of the things that you know and love, most of the things that you can just reach out and touch around your desk where you're sitting right now, are shipped to you on trucks, most likely that run on diesel. So this means no more of that if things shut down, or at least much less of that. No gasoline transport,
thought the COVID was
delivery
bad, the
vehicles.
lockdowns,
No
bitch.
Amazon. No
I got a
Walmart.
question though. That makes zero sense. You know why? Because it takes less to refine diesel than it does regular fuel. So how is that possible?
How is what possible? What part of that?
That there's less.
That there's going to be a shortage of it. It just seems like that is planned, because if it takes less resources to make diesel, it would be easier to make diesel, and in theory, it should be cheaper.
Talk about it.
Yeah, but I mean, if you don't have the crude, if you've shut down you've shut down drilling, you've hammered your ability to get access to the raw materials. You can't refine anything.
And
well, right,
you
but
hate
then how do they
everybody,
have
so
regular
you
gas?
sanction everywhere that you would get
I
it.
get what he's saying.
I mean, they're also
because if that were the case, they'd be like, we're going to run out of all gas. Period.
Well, we do. We are running. I mean, we just had another announcement earlier this week. We didn't cover it on the show, but the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the Biden administration is rolling out more in time of the election because we don't have enough gasoline. I mean, that's why we're seeing $4 a gallon. David, you're out in Alaska, right? What are you guys paying
Washington
for?
State.
What? So you're out in Fairbanks out there. What are you guys paying for gas out there right now? Do you know?
About $5.65, I think, was what I filled up last.
Wow.
65.
Yeah, it was this morning.
Holy smokes. What about you guys in the chat? Let us know what part of the world you're in. What are you paying for petrol? What are you paying for gas right now?
I don't know how Sarah, my neighbor Sarah Palin, she gets it for like $3.50, and I have no idea how she's doing it. I think she's directly importing it from Russia. I think she has like a direct line.
Well, she can see Russia right from her front porch. So
I can't from my yard, even though it's my neighbor.
You're so close there. So no Walmart, no Amazon packages, no food, no stores, no getting to work. Think about empty shelves, food supplies. Not getting to stores. Truckers that I was reviewing today were saying, we can't afford to do this. We're losing money. We cannot afford to do this. No coal to the electric companies, right? So, who do you think powers those cars, those electric cars, right? It comes from coal.
Yes.
It comes from coal, and it comes from the transport. So you need to transport the coal to the electric company. in order to make the power that power your electric vehicles.
And we spoke last week about how
Wow.
now the barge in the Mississippi River is the barges are not able to run because of low water levels. So 2,000 boats were stranded that would otherwise deliver coal, which is needed for fuel in other regions. You know, this diesel shortage, it focuses on the Northeast, but the rest of the country will also hurt for all of these things.
Yeah, no electric, no furnace, no heat for winter, no lights, etc. And by the way, New England already rationing heating even before peak winter. Bloomberg today writing, fuel stockpiles in New England are a third of seasonal norms. Actually, it's from October 21st. High cost forces consumers to partially fill heating oil tanks, so they're not even filling them up. And costs have skyrocketed, all because the U.S. is sanctioning Russia.
As in
But
New England Patriots, not actually the New England. Okay, got it.
But don't worry, Biden says he's lowering energy costs today. Listen.
By bringing down the cost of everyday things they have to work their families through. It's not just food and energy, which is critical. We brought down the cost of energy.
Yeah.
Dude, what planet are you living in?
No, because Jean-Pierre had said that recently. We're going to bring down the price of other things. And actually, they mentioned because Medicare premiums are going down, you'll have more room in your budget, you know, by saving that $13 a month or whatever the premium is lowering. Although I did have a viewer write me that said Medicare premiums are going down, but not Part C and Part D, which is interesting. I think we should look into that. Thank you for that tip.
Wow.
But they really think that these like little things over here will make up for the big price increases over here.
No.
Maybe that's how the federal budget, you know, runs their books, but American families can't.
No, and Jean-Pierre.
Well, and
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I looked at average prices of gasoline because I remember a time when diesel was always cheaper than gas.
Always
right? And at some
cheaper.
point
Now
it
it's like
shifted. And looking back in like
$6.
the 80s, it was like $1.25 for unleaded and 82 cents for diesel. And even in 2002, it was $1.56 for
Diesel
unleaded premium
was just cheaper
and 84
than
cents for diesel.
unleaded.
So when was this
the
switch
fucking a few
to where
months ago.
diesel became so
It
much
just
more
suddenly
expensive than
spiked.
regular gas?
Yeah, it is crazy because if you look at for a barrel of crude oil, we talked about crude a minute ago, right? A barrel of crude oil for, and according to the data from the EIA.gov, U.S. petroleum refineries produce an average of 11 to 12 gallons of diesel fuel from each 42-gallon barrel of crude oil.
Frosty Youth says $9 a gallon for diesel in California.
Wow. So I'm looking at this chart. It says it's 2004 is when it happened. Unleaded was $1.90 and diesel went up to $1.24. So that's like where it started to flip. So what happened then?
No, it's
in what year?
2004, he said.
2004. It's interesting. I don't know. Nothing stands
2004,
out to me.
2005, sorry.
Nothing stands out to me. The cost, I mean, other than, of course, we were at war. We were at war in Afghanistan and Iraq. So maybe it was the amount of
It just
fuel
happened,
being
dog.
consumed
Think about
by
it.
our military and the refining capacity in Iraq that, you know, oil fields on fire. Maybe that was it. I don't know. That's just the only date that kind of stands out in my brain. But
I moved to Portland in 2004, but I don't think that had anything to do with it.
Probably not, but you might. You never know.
Maybe.
So,
I don't know. Did you have a diesel car?
I did not.
No.
I
We
had a
had
Toyota
one.
pickup.
Which one of our cars was diesel? The Tiguan?
Yeah. I don't know. I forget. So all of these lies, so you mentioned Jean-Pierre, and so she was on the podium today, and all of these lies that the Biden administration continues to spin around energy costs is just amazing. Watch.
The president will continue to do everything he can to lower prices.
So that's a little short here. He's going to do everything he can to continue to lower prices, even though they're going up. So, you mean like going to Saudi Arabia and fist bumping the Saudi prince? Like that?
Giving
really
Ukraine all the
Well,
millions.
she was just saying a couple weeks ago how gas was going down faster than it ever has in world history.
Shit.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. It's amazing what their short memory. So these reporters have basically had enough of all of this. Watch this on the same question.
Today, the president seemed to be countering some of this GOP messaging on the economy, and he told people that Republicans like to call Democrats big spenders and but the facts don't seem to be exactly how he's painting it on some of these issues. He has claimed repeatedly that the administration reduced the deficit, but if you break it down, spending was high because of the pandemic, those programs expired, and that brought down the deficit, and then that deficit reduction was spent on canceling student loans, and then on the jobs claims that he made. He said that President Trump was the first since Hoover to lose jobs during his administration, but and he claimed that he had created 10 million new jobs, but in reality, those jobs have mostly been added back, and the Bureau of Labor Statistics says only about 514,000 jobs have been newly created. So how are people supposed to take this kind of messaging on their most important issue seriously when some of this feels like smoke and mirrors?
Well, let me tell you what the American people should take very, very seriously. Let me remind you of the Trump tax cut of 2017, $2 trillion that was not paid for. Not paid for. So I want to be very clear about that.
Okay. So this is the messaging they're coming out with now over the past 24 hours. I've seen this from a couple of Democrats. Oh, it's the Trump tax cuts. That's the reason we're in. So it was first it was the pandemic.
Right.
Then it was Putin's price hike.
Right.
And now it's Trump's tax cuts. That's why we're facing these higher gas prices.
Right. I don't know, but that reporter nailed it on all of the sort of smoke and mirrors to her point, or just like she laid out the math points that they are giving and said, yes, these are spun to look a certain way, but when you peel back the math, it's pretty easy to see it's not progress, right?
No.
So the question itself, there was nothing she could have said to answer that because the reporter nailed it.
Well, when Nancy Pelosi this weekend was asked about inflation, Nancy Pelosi, I think, probably has the best answer on inflation right now. What are we going to do? Here's her answer.
And the fact is that when I hear people talk about inflation, as I heard them there, we have to change that subject. Inflation is a global phenomenon.
Yeah.
The EU, the European Union, the UK, the British have higher inflation rate than we do here. It's not, the fight is not about inflation. It's about the cost of living. And the fact is...
So we need to change the subject. So when someone brings up inflation, you just need to change the subject. That's what we need to do. She is right.
Thanks.
She is right that it's higher in Europe. Well, I mean, it's going to.
I love that. Oh, sorry, but we have to change the subject because it's global. But like, if you talk about like climate change, does that mean that they have to change the subject because it's a global phenomenon? Like anything that's a global phenomenon, we now can't talk about.
Right.
Like, what the hell is that?
Because it's worse over there, so we should feel better about how bad it is here.
Right.
Like, it's not as bad as what it is in Latvia right now, and Estonia, 20%.
Even though economic models predicted based on certain actions that your party has taken that we would get here.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't take a genius. President Trump, on the day he left office, said, have fun with those $7 gallon gas prices. Bye, right? And so economic models have been telling us we would get here. Okay. And you take no responsibility.
Well, and no mention of this all being our influence. Like a lot of what's going on over there is our fault. But still.
No, ignore all of that. Just change the subject.
Well, we're leaders when we want to be.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenon, whatever she said. Phenomenon.
It's a fun phenomenon.
Well, that might not have been the best news for the morning, but I had to let y'all know before I went ahead and started my day because what the fuck? Now, I already did a show about the gas prices and what they're expected to get to and how we was going to run out of gas and stuff. But I did not know anything about the diesel and, the energy and basically going, like she said, to Europe and not having fucking electricity and having mass blackouts and not having water and not being able to have any items or goods delivered because ain't no gas to get it. Ain't nobody making enough money to make enough money to get some gas to go nowhere. So ain't nobody going to work. It's all a shit show. They said November 1st, people. Get ready. Love ya. Bye.
What's the deal? It's your boy Rodney the Boss, multi-platinum and Grammy Award winning producer of Lil Wayne on the Carter 3, Plies, Lil Boosie, Mr. Magic, Rocco. The list just goes on, you know what I'm saying? I'm rocking with my girl, Amber Alert, on the Takeover on the AATI network.